consciously living out a malevolent tragedy. And maybe that's not for the best. Oh, it's either that or the whole universe hates you, right? Or 70% hates you, you know. So anyways, you know, we got students to start writing in detail about not what they wanted. It's not a career thing, because that's the closest people usually get, is they have a career plan. It's like, no, it's not a career plan. That's peripheral. Important, but peripheral. It's like, all right, you got 3 years, man. You're going to live them anyways. Devote those 3 years to setting the world up around you so that it's the best it could possibly be for you. As if you were taking care of yourself, as if you cared for yourself. Well, what would that look like? You know, let's say, just for the sake of argument, if you figured out where you were, that you could have what would be best for you. Well, what is that? I bet you never asked. People don't ask. And so life comes at them like random snakes, and they sort of fend them off. And life goes by, and things don't work out the way people expected them to. But a huge part of that is they didn't know where they were because they wouldn't look or didn't know that they should look. Ignorance and willful blindness, right? Two great catastrophes. And they never figured out where they wanted to go or why. Now, there's a problem with figuring out where you want to go. And the problem is that you make your conditions for failure clear to yourself. And people don't like that. So if you keep yourself in the fog, then you can't tell when you screwed up. Now, that isn't so good because you're still screwing up. You're just too blind, self-blind to notice. Although in the short term, that's less painful. If you make your criteria for success razor sharp, then you know every time you screw up. But that's great because then you could fix it. You could either repair the behavioral inadequacy or the conceptual inadequacy that you're using as a tool in that situation, or maybe you could adjust your damn plan. Either way, you can fix it. And so, okay, so you're living in one of these bloody things, and you might as well, it seems to me, you might as well make it the best one you could live in because you don't have anything better to do. Now, if you don't do that, if you don't do it consciously, and this is what the psychoanalysts pointed out, is that you have innumerable quasi-autonomous subsystems that make you up that will generate stories impulsively, and you'll just act them out. And you know that because you watch yourself over 2 weeks and you think, Jesus, I did a lot of stupid things in the last 2 weeks. And you think, why? And it's because you're a collection of somewhat random quasi-autonomous personality units, and lacking a leader, they're just going to fire off whenever they want, you know. First you're hungry, then you're thirsty, then you want to go to bed with your wife, you know. Then you want to sleep in, then you want to tell your boss off, then you want to curse at the guy that cuts you off in traffic. It's like, you're kind of like a 2-year-old, you know, just it's one emotional frame after another vying for dominance. There's no overarching hierarchy, and there's no king at the top. And so, you know, we already talked about pyramids of competence, and what's supposed to be at the top is you want to bring all those things together. We understand this neurologically. I'll show you some of that in a little bit. We understand this neurologically, how this maps in some sense right onto the neural structure of your being. You want to put something in control, and the thing that you should put in control is the bloody thing that pays attention and learns, right? Everything else in the hierarchy should be subordinate to the thing that pays attention and learns. And you could think, well, that's the message of the idea of logos. That's for sure, because logos is partly attention and partly communication. And you learn a lot by communicating with others. Okay, so you need to know where you are. Just like your GPS, which is about the closest thing we have to an intelligent cybernetic system. Those GPSs in your cars, those bloody things are pretty smart because they know where you are, they know where you're going, and if you go off course, they recalculate your route. It's like those things are damn near alive. That's so close to intelligence. And you can tell that because they act intelligently. They solve problems continually. So you need, and this is a cybernetic model, by the way, and cybernetic models were the models on which the GPS systems were based, so it's not accidental. So you need to know where you are, and you need to know where you're going. And then the next thing you need to know is how it is that you're going to act, move your body, how you're going to propel yourself through time and space to transform this into that. And so, okay, and then we can make that a little bit more complex because it's a bit too simple. So we'll do this. So it isn't exactly that you live in one of these. It's that you live in a nested hierarchy of these. And you could think of this as your own internal patriarchy. That's a good way of thinking about it. And maybe it could be a tyrant, or maybe it could be something that gives you security and functional autonomy, and hopefully that's the one you go for. But it's a battle, you know, because a little bit of tyranny exists in everyone. And so, so at the very highest level of analysis, so that would be the overarching story. Maybe you think, I'd like to be a good person, or a successful person, or famous person. I think good's probably better, because you can come up with the definition of good if you want, as long as it doesn't annoy other people too badly. Because they'll just get in your way, and that won't be helpful. So you have to negotiate it. But let's say you're a good person. That's sort of the story at the top of the hierarchy. And then you could decompose that into your primary roles. Maybe you're a good parent, maybe you're a good employer, or maybe you're a good employee, maybe you're a good sibling, maybe you're a good child. You know, those are major roles that you have in your life. And so you'd say that what good person is what's good about you across all those roles. So it's a higher order abstraction from something more concrete. And then you can take the role good parent, and you can say, well, what is it that constitutes a good parent? And you might say, well, a good parent, this isn't exhaustive, obviously. A good parent has a good job and takes care of his or her family. And then you might say, well, what does it mean to take care of your family? And then you might say, well, you know, you can cook the odd meal, not too odd, hopefully. You can cook the odd meal, and you can play with the baby. And then you might say, well, how do you play with a baby? And then you might say, well, you play peekaboo with the baby, or you tickle the baby. Okay, well, there's a cool shift there, because this is all articulated and conceptual, right? Right down to this level, and then all of a sudden it's your body. Because how do you play peekaboo with a baby? You don't like have a chat about how you play peekaboo with a baby, right? You go like this. It's quite fun. You could even do it with older people. They even smile about it, right? It's Dad's gone, and the baby's all shocked to death about that. Where'd he go? Oh, look, he's back. You know, the baby is playing with the reliability of the world, so it's a real intense game for a baby. It's like, oh no, Dad's gone. Oh, look, he showed up again. Oh no, he's gone. And then Dad's smiling to indicate that those brief flashes into non-existence aren't existentially terrifying beyond capacity, right? And so, but the point is that if you're playing peekaboo with a baby, you're not thinking anymore. It's not in the realm of articulation or abstraction. It's actually something that you're doing with